Greetings, my name, Masachaba Baloyi. I'm the CEO and founder of IndiePath Human Capital. We are your guide to building and sustaining a high-performance culture. It's almost the end of the third quarter, and perhaps you're feeling a little fatigued, hopeless, and maybe considering what happened to those big aspirations you had at the beginning of the year. Let me remind you, and to quote our former President Thabo Mbeki said, "Those who complete the course will do so only because they do not, as fatigue sets in, convince themselves that the road ahead is still too long. The inclines too steep. The loneliness impossible to bear. And the price itself of doubtful value." To help us unpack our mental wellness, I've asked a good doctor. In fact, the true contributor to the moments of impact, Dr. Nompumelelo Malatji-Angoma. Thank you so much, good doctor, for joining us. How do you do?
I'm doing very well, and thank you for having me, Ms. Chaba. It's good to be here with you. The topics that you handle and that you manage are just brilliant, so I feel very privileged to be able to share.
Thank you. Now, we can't encourage you to become high performers and not guide you into how to deal with yourself.
Yeah.
The traumas that we've endured.
Yeah, 100%.
The limitations that we impose on ourselves.
Yeah.
But to start, let's start at the very beginning.
Yeah.
What's the purpose of a psychologist?
So a psychologist helps with just mental health. I mean, that's the first thing. What we prefer to do is help you remain healthy. Relationships, whether it's a marriage or a long-term relationship or anything else, work, career. So those developmental stages are important for you to touch base with a psychologist. The other element that we look at would be on the abnormal psychology side, which speaks to pathology, right? And you'd be surprised that many of us are walking around with a little bit of mental health issues. And we shouldn't be surprised, but we'd be surprised. So many people don't know that the next person is also battling psychological issues like depression. We see a lot of anxiety. I mean, that's something that's become very common now. There are other issues that we see, bipolar, which for me seems to be on the increase as far as the people that we see. So all of that would be more on the pathology side, would be more on the very difficult side, because there it's not just about keeping you afloat. It's not just about teaching you to deal with the ups and downs and the normal elements of life. There we talk about treating a condition.
Sure.
And many of us, unfortunately, go through elements like that. But I must tell you that it's not unusual for that level of pathology to be something that's come through the family. So, so that people don't feel a sense of, you know what, this is the first time this has ever happened, or this is unusual, I'm an outcast, etc. Often when we see individuals, we have to ask the question, because you do an in-depth history intake. You have to ask the question. So, you know, have you seen these sorts of symptoms, etc.? We may not have called it depression, or we may not have called it anxiety or a personality disorder. But you describe, you know, what that looks like. And the individual will say, yeah, you know, actually, when I think about it, my aunt attempted to take her own life or whatever it is, and then you make the connection. So just to help the listeners see that, in fact, it's not that I just came out of nowhere and this is just an unusual thing in life and in my community or in my family. Yes, yeah.
Wow. Now, for a country with our history.
Sure. Yeah.
How does those nuances
oh my goodness,
affect how we see ourselves?
Wow. So, I mean, this is a topic that we could speak about for hours and for days. And it's actually a passion of mine, I must say, because you see the results of many years of the system that we lived under. So I'm talking about apartheid. And I know many people are thinking, we're thinking crime, etc. Of course, we're thinking that. But the bigger picture is the hundreds of years that one looked at from whether it's a slavery issue or an apartheid discriminatory issue, racism, etc. Those things are elements that people, although we're not linked to that via the law, but certainly we see that it can be really passed down from generation to generation. So that trauma can be passed down from generation to generation. So you see children who did not live under apartheid, but their behavior very much is in line with the trauma of the previous generation. So, I mean, don't get me started on that, because there's a big whole discussion about what trauma this nation is suffering and has suffered and continues to suffer. So trauma is a big deal. Trauma changes how you see yourself. It changes how you see life and others. So suddenly the world does not feel so safe. And you can see those that haven't been traumatized. They're just easy. They find connecting with others easy. They find engaging with others easy. Because the world is generally in their nervous system feels very safe.
So you might think that you're an introvert, but actually you're not. It's just trauma telling you that you don't belong.
Yes, but let's not look at introversion as a problem. So, if one is looking at anxiety, yes, you're looking at trauma, yes, but there's a big difference between a personality type or personality orientation, which is what your introversion and extroversion would be, and borderline between the two would be. The more conditions that we were talking about now. So trauma, and of course trauma can present in a way the person pulls back and withdraws, etc. But I just want the listeners to be very clear that introversion does not mean that I've gone through. It's just a personality orientation,
And when I do see a psychologist, now that we know that we are all healing, and we have to heal to lead.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be an effective leader, you must heal.
100%. 100%.
In absence of that, you basically trauma walking around and making decisions from a...
Absolutely. About people, for people, on behalf of people. I love how you put that, because leaders have to understand that I walk around, as Maschaba has indicated, but I'm making decisions in my state, whatever that state is, on behalf of other people, the way that I come across, the way that, I'm not consistent. You can often see when a leader is not consistent. You're not the same every day. And that does a piece of work for other people. It causes issues for the people that you are leading, because they feed off that energy. They very much take on the fact that, it's now me, right? It must be me. But they've got no idea that you're carrying your own burdens and your own issues. But certainly I think leaders for sure should consistently have support, whether it's through a psychologist to other. There needs to be continual support and work that's been done internally for all leaders.
Sure. When I brave up the courage to then put a call through, and I schedule an appointment, first appointment, what's expected of me? What can I expect from my psychologist?
Okay. So the important thing is to get there, and in the first few minutes, you'll get a sense of, is there rapport between me and this individual? So you are not bound to any psychologist. In fact, you're not bound to any professional individual. So you are in a position to decide, do I feel a sense of rapport between myself and the psychologist? That's the first thing. And the first session is just for you to be comfortable with each other, see if this works and works for you as the client, as in, do I feel that rapport? But also for the psychologist to get a sense of, once they've heard what brings you there, can they assist you? Or do they need to refer? So it could be a multitude of things. So it could be that, one is too close to a similar situation, and therefore I don't think that I can be of the best person to assist this individual. Or maybe it's not even a psychological issue, and we refer it elsewhere, right? Often when the pathology is involved, you're going to need depression, bipolar, borderline, etc. All of those elements may require a component of medication. And many clients are very uncomfortable. So, because they are professional people, right?
I know I was. I definitely was.
So the minute you mention this dual treatment path, which is often important, that yes, therapy is is the most important element, but there may be a medication component that we need. Professional clients really they really, it's their backup almost immediately, because they think, wait a minute, how do I need a tablet to help me? Because I know that I've been able to get through many things. And that in itself, it distresses them and traumatizes them all over again.
True story. But it's the thought when you said to me, you need medication.
Yes.
And I thought, but I exercise, I eat
100%,
well, I want to live, I'm excited about life.
Yes.
And you were like,
Yeah.
It was so hard to accept.
100%. The tears come sometimes at the diagnosis, because you feel a sense of, how did I get here? It can't be me. It's not, how did I get here where I don't only need therapy, but I need to pop pills to assist me? They're also worried about dependency. So they're worried about, I don't want to be in a position where I'm dependent on this medication. And how long will it be? Will it change me? That's another question that people ask. They'll ask,
will I pick up weight?
Well, you most likely may pick up weight. I don't want to lie to our listeners, but certainly that for some of these, the treatments, the psychiatrist, and I must say that is a psychiatrist will take care of business on that side, but some of the side effects may be that somebody picks up a bit of weight, but your psychiatrist will know of health, because you know that this is how I was before and this is how I am now. So the minute I start to feel a sense of fatigue, but continuously, I start to feel a sense of, I just am not interested in the same things that I used to be interested in. People are just a no-go. You know what? I want to isolate myself. Okay. And there's a low activity sort of element there where I used to go to gym. Now I actually don't have the energy, the motivation. I don't want to do things that require me to be active in whatever way. And active could be going out to see my friends. And by the way, connections tell us that actually we are healthy. So if I'm able to connect and engage comfortably where I feel safe to do that, then you kind of know that your nervous system is very healthy. And so it's able it's able to manage the range of, events happen, something happens, and then your nervous system gets a little bit triggered. That's fine. But then it knows that, I've got this range, and I can come back to what we call the I am phase, or the healthy, relaxed, calm, engaging, where you really can feel a sense of, I feel like myself, right? That's quality of life, because you see things as they are.
It's a feeling.
Yeah.
So you have to own it.
You have to own it. If I suddenly feel different in any way, shape, or form for longer than 2 weeks, then I've got to go and get some help. And there's no shame to it, because remember, there is you, and then there is this situation, and there's this condition. So in all of these things, we want to get you back to you. So when I see my clients and we discuss treatment, and we discuss therapy, and yes, medication sometimes, the possibility that I may have to refer them to a psychiatrist. What I always say to them is, you are not yourself right now. And they will
and you can pick it up. You've seen enough.
They know it. And the minute you say, at the moment, your quality of life is, I can tell you for free that when I see, because we also do assessments with them. So we do psychological assessments just to confirm what I'm seeing. And I'll tell the individual that, in fact, from what I'm seeing here and my observation, I don't think that your quality of life is where it should be. And I'm pretty sure that you know it. And we want to be able to, through the treatment, whether it's the therapy on its own or dual with the medication, all we're trying to do is give you support to go back to who you are so that you can thrive, right? Mentally thrive, whether it's a psychologist or a psychiatrist, they should be able to help you so that you can get back to yourself. And then you'll have mental clarity.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing better than mental clarity. You just see things for what they are. You can problem solve. You can, things are not...
You're not easily offended.
Yeah. 100%.
That has been the best.
Yeah.
I'm not easily offended. If you say no to me, that's fine.
Yeah, that's okay.
It doesn't take away from me.
Yes.
My confidence is still. Sometimes we'll say
100%.
yes. How often should we be seeing a psychologist?
So it depends on the situation. I would say if it's a healthy individual, what I mean is that it's more developmental things, a person getting married and it's a life change of sort, having children or student. I mean, students also, let's call it, we've got young people who are going through the most. And we are seeing a lot of anxiety in young people. And these are young people that are having to study, right? A lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and sometimes personality disorders there as well. So whatever changes the individual is going through, if it's a normal change, then it's okay for them to see you as and when they need to see you. So maybe once a month or whatever it is. But if it is the anxiety, the more pathological issues that affect your functioning in life, then you want to make sure that you see the psychologist once a week for a bit and you can decide on the program. You can decide on, how many sessions we need, and then we'll relook. Anything that is a significant change, it's affecting my day-to-day functioning, that we say, you should see a psychologist every week, depending on what the situation is. And that would be between you and the psychologist.
But as a way of a guide, if you're changing jobs, you're getting married, you're about to commit into something big, to that moment of impact.
Yeah, 100%, yes.
Perhaps it's time to go see Dr. Nompumelelo Malatji-Angoma, who is on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Please don't bombard her. The numbers are 011
285 0006.
0006.
Yeah.
Please do reach out to her. As a mom, I can see that my daughter or my son is not well.
Yeah.
How do I introduce the subject? How do I start the conversation? How can I even pick up if there's a little bit of anxiety or depression in a young adult's life?
So change. So if it's a teenager, then it's very obvious, but maybe not so obvious. Because with teenagers, we kind of expect for them to withdraw. So we expect as society that this teenager is going to now not talk to us as much. They're going to be in their room a lot more, etc. So I think for parents, it can be confusing. But this isolation is a big deal. Excessively is your child. So if your child spends 3/4 of the day in their room, it doesn't matter what age they are. There's something there and you've got to look into it. It can allow isolation, can allow for many things to fester. And one of those things would be depression, They're not handling the anxiety as well as we should. Sometimes it's porn. There's so many things that teenagers are, without supervision and without an involved parent, kids can really fall into pits that, and then sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get them out. But it's always possible to get them out. So isolation is a big deal. They marks that change. Who are they hanging out with? Suddenly they've got different friends and new friends. So
it's telling.
It's telling. So
there's a change.
There's a change in the child. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wow. And how do we introduce this conversation to them?
To them, yeah. Oh, that's a very tough one because, in our industry, we know for sure that it's very rare for a teenager to bring themselves to therapy. So they just get there with the sense that I was dragged here, right? So it's very difficult.
And they might close up.
They always do. I mean, I think that in my career, there have been very few in the first session, second session, who've been completely open. He or she or they open up. But to talk about it and to put it to them, always difficult. I think as a parent, it's about, I want the best for you. What are the things that you want to improve in, right?
Yeah.
And you can put it that way because everybody wants to improve. Maybe they'll say it's public speaking. So you use that as an in. You'll say, you know what, they'll say, no, I battle with speaking in front of the class. Okay, well, I know a psychologist that can help you with that.
There, guys, you've had it for yourself. This is very generic, disclaimer. You have to go see a psychologist when it doesn't feel right anymore. And it's 2 weeks of you knowing that I'm not where I need to be.
Yeah.
And that clouds your judgment.
It clouds your judgment, yeah.
You have to seek intervention.
Yeah. And you don't feel safe. The big thing is that you suddenly don't feel safe in the world. People are not the same for you.
Give us an example.
Yeah. So trauma, as I said, anything happening, and we can mention different examples here that are for sensitive viewers not too great, but it could be anything. It could be sexual molestation as a trauma. It could be how you've been treated in a long-term relationship, so abuse of any type, whether it is emotional, financial, physical, verbal, etc. All of that have a way of changing you as an individual, how you see yourself. Suddenly your self-worth is low. And how I see other people. Suddenly I don't trust other people anymore. And I don't trust the world anymore. I don't feel... And people will tell you, I can feel the sense of not feeling safe anymore. A little bit more jittery. I'm a little bit more not so confident in how I face the world. So all of those things.
And trauma impacts how you perform and ultimately your livelihood.
100%. And your peak performance is not something you're going to get to if there are mental health issues. Fact.
You will not be a high performer when you have underlying mental issues.
100%. No.
You'll never reach your full potential.
No. 100%.
What happens if trauma goes untreated? What's the compound effect of trauma in the long term?
With trauma, ultimately what happens, I think I described to you how our nervous system works. So you're starting off with the sense of comfort because, it's been a safe world and you feel safe and you can engage, you have healthy relationships, etc. And then it goes up if something triggers. So there's an event, like I mentioned earlier on, a relationship where you've been abused, etc. And it could be a family relationship where you've been abused or some sort, or a friendship, or anything that looks that way, or sexual harassment or whatever it is that happens. Suddenly, I go into a mode where I want to fight. So I have anxiety, and people say that I'm angry. People will say that you're an angry individual, anger and rage and irritation, etc. Suddenly all of those things kick in. The only problem is that once those things have been removed, we should, as individuals, be built to be able to go back to that earlier stage where we are comfortable in the world, etc. So we are wired to be able to move between these phases. But what happens with humans is that we stay there. So you
a lot longer than we should.
Yes, for long. You are feeling like you want to fight all the time. You want to leave relationships.
Yes.
Every relationship now because of
nothing is good enough
experience that you've had in a previous relationship because you are scared the whole time. Then you move on. If it happens long enough, then you move on to your freeze phase, where depression hits in, where you actually feel like you cannot influence the world anymore. And you feel like, you know what? I don't know if I can do this life. I could just sleep for 10 days or for a year, right? Then I won't feel. So they'll say, I don't want to feel anymore because I feel helpless and hopeless in this particular state. Then I dissociate. I don't speak so much to people. That sense of being frozen.
I know too well.
That's the trauma. So basically, it will take you starting off, and children start off if they come from families where they've been supported, and there's a healthy bond, there's a responsive parent, etc. If something happens, then it's that next phase. And if it just continues and they feel like they can't influence the world because I'm in this relationship for so long, I've tried to leave, I can't, or whatever it is, then you move on to a depressed state. You move on to that frozen state where I feel as if there's nothing I can do. I'm just going to sit. In fact, I won't complain anymore. I won't say anything anymore.
You just accept it.
You just accept in a way that's not healthy.
Could you define that as settling?
Yeah.
That's what it means to settle.
Yeah, to settle, but in a very unhealthy way. You are depressed, you're no longer engaging because you actually don't think that it's going to make a difference.
Oh, you don't think it's going to make a difference?
You don't think, because that's when you're like, and people decide that, you know what, I think if I wasn't around, right? And the idea about suicidal ideation is because it's not that I want to die necessarily. It's about the fact that I don't want to feel like this anymore. And I've tried, and there's nothing that I can do to stop myself feeling this way or being in this particular situation. Even your children, even your partners, your family, etc., look after your mental health. Because if that's the case, you're able to be healthy in all portions of your life, all areas of your life.
And to our leaders that are watching?
Leaders, again, it's the same thing. You want to make sure that you are very honest with yourself. Make sure that you are honest with yourself so that you're in a position to lead others and to make those decisions on behalf of others. If we're not honest with ourselves, then there is destruction. So it's a destructive path that not only affects you, but affects others.